So we're the Janeskis. We own Big Round Wheel Amusements. We travel throughout the country setting up amusement rides of all different sorts for all different reasons. Private events, corporate events. We never know where we're going to be next. We service the whole United States and we travel as a family. We put our rides together as a family. We handle everything turnkey. We bring the ride to the event, we set it up, we operate it, and we are Big Round Wheel Amusements. I'm Darren.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Jessica.
I'm Tommy.
And I'm Corey.
We are the family who travels the country and sets up amusement rides. So we got a call, a few weeks ago about donating some rides for the prom in Blacksburg, for Blacksburg High School. So we're going to bring these rides out there and get them set up for them. We're going to provide them, we're going to really change it up and give them something a little more than they asked for. They just wanted a Ferris wheel in our carousel that they were very partial to. So we're going to give them some games and some nice stuff. They've been so restricted and having to do their prom outside to be compliant and everything. We want to give them everything we can give them. So we've got couple game trailers. We'll probably take our game trailers over there for them. We'll get our classic wheel. God, that thing has been sitting in the building since 2019. And it is full of cobwebs, and there'll probably be bats that come out of the wheel when we open it up. It's been sitting there so long, I don't know. We're probably, if we do it, we're probably gonna have to get it pressure washed because it's gonna be dirty.
It's gonna be dirty.
And we don't have time to pressure wash it here because we'd have to set the whole ride up. So I think we'll just have a pressure washer come out, a professional, and wash the whole ride when we're done setting it up. And it'll look shiny and clean for them. But I mean, when we put it in there, it was perfect. So we had just taken that ride out of inventory because we wanted to paint it. But we had a busy 2019. We didn't have time to do any painting. Got the new Ferris wheel. We've been doing a lot of our events with that. And then 2020 hits and we weren't doing much of anything. So I think it'll be great. They wanted a classic Ferris wheel to make really nice pictures with. Everyone's going to be dressed formal, so they'll have a really classic looking Ferris wheel. Our traditional, the one that started it all, and I think it'll be good. We'll give them some games and fun, and I think they'll have a fantastic night with a lot of photo opportunities. This will be a prom to remember for them, and they deserve it.
They do, definitely.
Yeah. So Sarah, hook up to the generator and we'll take that over with the truck because we need the big generator for that Ferris wheel. It uses a lot of power. We're going to take the big generator over there. You bring that in and I'll bring the Ferris wheel and we'll have everything we need. Carousel's already set up and we'll just get that one done. So the power we use for the Ferris wheel is it's an industrial power. It's 3-phase. We run around 208 volts phase to phase, more of an industrial power. And this older Ferris wheel is not as energy efficient as the newer rides. So the amperage that it draws is a good bit more. So typically to run this one, we'll bring a bigger generator.
My name is Tommy Janeski and I'm 15 years old. Yeah, it's a lot more fun in school. At school you just writing and everything. Here I can have fun setting up with my family. I just like being with my family during the whole job.
The next step is actually raising the tower so we can start putting the spokes out.
So we go a lot of different places. We connect to a lot of different power sources. And there's a lot of different variations with three-phase power. So we want to make sure that when we connect to a new power source that all the power is what we expect it to be. So we have a meter here that checks each phase. So I have 126, 128, and 123, which is great. So these are outriggers or wind braces, and they don't really support any weight when the ride is operating normally, but they do give the ride stability in wind, keep it from blowing around or throwing the cable out of misalignment, anything like that. So they're very, very important. So these are the main cables that hold up the boom of the Ferris wheel that holds the whole thing together. So when we tighten them, it's very important that everything be in alignment, and these cables do a pretty good bit of work keeping the wheel in line. So it's a little bit windy today, and you can actually see the outrigger moving up and down with the wind. And at this point, the Ferris wheel is only halfway set up. So definitely a smoother ride with those outriggers out there. Very, very important to the ride.
You get to ride all the rides for free, no tickets. Favorite thing is that I get to be with family doing it, so it's nice that I don't have to go away, or that they go away and then we're home alone and we have to waste the time that we get to go with them and travel all over the place. I have to take these seats down that are stowed here on top, so once we do start bringing the spokes out and connecting them, they won't be in the way. The next step will be to start pulling the spokes out. So we're going to put our brace hook on and start pulling them out one by one, and then you put the sidebars on. So for the time being, we only not even hand tight, just place these on here, enough on the bolt so it doesn't come off, because we have to attach another one here later. And then we'll go around later with the impacts and actually tighten them up.
So this Ferris wheel was made in 1969 by the Garbrick family in Pennsylvania. And they had such a good idea in building a portable Ferris wheel. Even today, this wheel is built to such good standards. The materials that they use are all just regular dimensional steel, so they didn't use any tubing. It was all just standard steel like angle iron and flat bar, and I believe the gentleman was an engineer, and he built this line of Ferris wheels, very popular at the time. They sold a lot of them. They didn't even have much for a manual when they made them. They used to send the sales rep out, and he would show everyone how to put these rides together. And that was it. But such a good, well-built, well-designed ride, so safe, so easy to make repairs to. We can have a fabricating shop build any of the parts that we need, and it's really an amazing piece of equipment, and we are so happy to have this ride. So right now is probably the most dangerous time of setup. So what we've got is half of the wheel is outward on one side of the ride. We got a lot of weight on one side and no weight at all on the other side. So it's a very dangerous time. There's a lot of weight on the winch cable pulling, and you know, if something went terribly wrong, it could be a deadly situation. It could be very bad. So during this time, we're extremely cautious, and everyone is pretty much on edge, and they're keeping their distance from that part of the wheel as it goes up, as it raises, being so far off balance. So with that wheel configured like that and off balance the way it is right now, you can see the amount of torsion and stress on this joint, because this is the winch cable and it's pulling on the ride, holding all that weight up, and it's pulling on this one spindle. So there is a tremendous amount of stress on this spindle holding the whole side of the ride up. So once we get a few more segments past, it won't be that way, but this is definitely the critical moment. These bolts here, they're called journal bolts, and they're what the seat rides on. So we actually just had these x-rayed the other day, and we do that periodically. We have a schedule. We have a company come out and they x-ray these to make sure that there's no stress cracks, especially with all this torsion and everything going on, and the fact that a seat with a couple of riders is all resting on this one area. A lot of times you'll see a sign on a Ferris wheel that says, "Do not rock the seats." And simply the fact that the seat is sitting on here like this, and as the ride goes around, the seat pivots just like this. Well, if a person rocks the seat down to this point right here, there's no more weight holding the seat on. You know, there are pins that restrain it from coming off, but then you're relying on a small pin. That's why we say, do not rock the seats on a Ferris wheel. It's very dangerous. So these are the yokes for transport. The tower lays on these, and they actually make it a little bit wider down here so the ride wouldn't spin freely. So we take these things off, and they're only used for transport. So at this point, as we put the spreader bars on, we keep the nuts hand tight. The reason they need to be hand tight is because as the wheel is winched out, it's constantly changing shape until it gets fully set up. So as we assemble these, leave the nuts the way they are, and then when it's done and the wheel's completely round, that's when we go in with an impact gun and we tighten them all and torque them to spec. So now we use hydraulics to both operate the ride and to set up the ride. So we have a set of setup hydraulics that are driven off the same pump that runs the ride. So Jessica is switching them over now. So now we will be in ride mode, which gives us the hydraulics to spin the wheel. So it turns this pulley in here, hydraulic motor. And this is the drive cable. So it's a galvanized 1/2-inch steel cable. And this transfers all the torque from the motors up to actually spin the ride. Braking, everything is done through that cable. So that cable is something we inspect every setup, make sure there's no barbs. If there are any barbs on this cable, we immediately take it off, and we have another cable that we bring with us, and we will replace it on site. So these are what we call elephant ears, and they go on the outside of the ride. So it has a little rubber pad inside there, and the cable sits inside of here and covers the outside perimeter of the wheel, and that's what the cable rides in. Tommy, you went up there and you did the wind brace, but you forgot to take the cable loose up at the top.
Oh, I'll do that.
So Jessica is bypassing. She's going to leave that cable not inside that keeper. That way I can have a little bit of slack here when I thread the cable through this cable linkage, the drive linkage here. I put some cheat numbers on this because occasionally I will forget which way it goes, but I know it goes back here in the first groove. And this is actually the drive pulley. This is the one that does all the work. This is an idler pulley. It just keeps tension on the cable. What we look for is there's a lot of things that can go wrong with the configuration of the cable. One thing is the distance right here. All of this has to do with the way the ride has been leveled. And we leveled this ride really good. It is dead on. The plumb of the wheel, everything is just right. And that gives us really nice spacing here. We can run it up as tight as that. Just don't want this cable rubbing on one another. It's just unnecessary wear. So this is excellent spacing right here. This is what we like. Another thing that we look at, this is the pickup side. So after the cable goes through this configuration, it goes into this elephant ear here. Well, as you can see, it's landing right dead center in that collector ear, and that's perfect. That's what we like. So, you know, obviously you could run it out to here, and when the wheel goes around, that kind of pushes it in, but it also causes unnecessary wear to that cable. There's no reason to run the cable like that to where it wears out. And if you look at our habits, there is no paint worn off this ear because we don't tolerate the the alignment to go that bad. There's some rides might be old and warped, and the cable might be all the way in here. When it goes around, it has to rub on that ear. There's no reason to wear the cable like that. So if you set the ride up perfectly level and everything is just right, the cable goes in, everything's happy. So for wear purposes, we have all of our seats numbered to the sweep that it goes on. I think that this is important because there could be some specific wear that might be specific to one particular seat and the way it goes on the sweep. And if you don't maintain that same connection, you put another seat on there that's just a little bit different in the journals, I think it's going to add wear that we don't need. And another thing that we have is a lot of friction. So we always keep them specific. So a number 10 seat goes on a number 10 sweep. This got crushed during setup. This is a clamp that holds our rubber pad on. And the rubber pad is glued on. It's all the manufacturer requires us to do. But I like putting this clamp on here as a double safety. So I think during setup, the cable pushed this tightener off here, and it has fallen off. So we're definitely good to finish setting up the ride without this part. We will go back to our shop before we run it and put a new one on. It's kind of getting old anyway. It couldn't hurt to put a new one on. And again, it's just a additional measure to keep that rubber pad from ever slipping since it is already glued on. One of my absolutely least favorite things of setting this wheel up are lifting these heavy steel seats up and putting them on here. I think it has aged my back 25 years in 10 years. I had to find another way. There's no room for two people up here, so you can't really use a helper. Very awkward to move these seats. So I came up with an idea, and I found this crane on Craigslist. It's a little electronic crane for lifting packages in a warehouse. And we modified it, and I built this jig to lift up the seats. And you can control the crane from here, down, up. It's battery operated, so if you don't have the power going when you're setting up the ride, you can use this thing without any trouble. And it has really made a difference and changed my life forever to not have to lift these really heavy seats up. And we love having it. Very important part about these seats is, of course, the attachment that they have to the journal bolts on the ride. When this ride was made back in 1969, they used a lead packing to sit up inside of this area right here where it rides. And the lead, being a softer metal on a harder steel, would be the friction barrier to protect this joint. You would always have to grease them, and the lead would wear out. And if the lead wears out, the clearances tighten up, and you get metal on metal wear, and it wears out the seat and the bolt, so they have to be changed. So this ride has a nylon bushing inside here. No grease required, which is a big plus on an amusement ride because grease gets everywhere. And it has made a dramatic change to the way these seats attach. Big help. We check them every year or two with a micrometer, and we've actually found that there has been no wear to these journal pads in, I would say, about 7 years. We haven't had any wear. So the nylon is still the same size. We do put Teflon and silicone spray on these periodically, but it's amazing. There's been no wear. So big help to have having those nylon bushings in there. Yeah. You see, we can't just put seats on in any order. There's got to be some form of balance because you get a lot of seats concentrated in one area, and it throws that wheel off balance, and it gives the winch motor, the drive motor, all that much more work to do, is lift up hundreds of pounds of seats on one side of the wheel. And then when it comes down, you have to worry about stopping them. There's people working around the wheel in tight areas, so we try to do our best to keep it balanced when we load it to some degree. You know, a hair guard obviously is just what it is. When a person's riding on the wheel and they have long hair, we've got a joint right here that rotates. So you wouldn't want a person's hair to get wrapped around that axle as they're going around the Ferris wheel. It would be catastrophic. So other manufacturers have come up with a big shield that wraps around the back of the seat. And that's fine, it does the job, but it also obstructs the view. And one of the most important things of riding a Ferris wheel for the passenger is having a great view, to be able to look around and see where you are. And one of the good things that this Garbrick manufacturer did when they manufactured this is they went with a very simple and very effective hair guard. So this just simply pops over this right here. A bolt goes through it, and it keeps a person's hair from getting wrapped up in that shaft, and it doesn't obstruct the view. So again, in 1969, when they were building this ride, they were geniuses. They really cared about the passengers, they cared about their safety, and they have a great idea. It's a very simple hair guard.
That's the last step for the seats, so now we'll open the seats and pull them up and open.
Hey Mike, how you doing? This is Mike, our inspector, third-party inspector, and he's going to do our inspection today. After we set up, this ride will be inspected, and we also have the state auditor here from the state of South Carolina, and he's going to go and make sure that the inspection was completed on the ride, and he'll put our annual 2021 sticker on the ride for inspection in South Carolina. So you're going to go up to the top?
I am, yes sir. I'm going to go up and check all the pins and all of the bolts. Make sure I don't see any cracks or anything like that. All the spreader bars are in properly, and just make sure it's put together like it ought to be put together.
They've been holding up good.
We got a crack right here.
Yep. See that?
And this tubing,
And this
I guess,
tubing.
yeah. And the foot tub is separate from the seat itself, but we probably need to repair that
Yep.
before we put somebody in there. So that's right.
And this is seat number what?
Is it right here?
Seat number 11.